In August 2024, specifically August 21st through the 22nd, I spent a few days at the Strong Museum of Play over in Rochester, New York for the Save the Games symposium that was hosted there. Now, I don't consider myself a particularly unique person with unique ideas or anything. I mean, come on, I'm just a YouTuber in a sense. But way back in February, I sent a proposal for a presentation titled Video Game Preservation and YouTube. Much like H-Bomber Guy's video, Plagiarism and YouTube, I'll admit his video and the work that I've been doing behind the scenes for Video Game Docs is what inspired me to submit this proposal. I thankfully have a recording of my presentation, but I wanted to make a short little video about the Strong Museum and what they're doing in the video game preservation space first, mainly to give them props for all that they've done, and to talk about my experience with the event in case any of my audience would like to visit the Strong, or if there's a Save the Games 2025 or 2026, it would be a good chance to go and see what's going on there. The itinerary for the event allowed us to explore the museum itself upon arriving, giving us the opportunity to see all the things that the Strong had to offer, including, but not limited to, the Video Game Hall of Fame, the Toy Hall of Fame, interactive exhibits to help explain what exactly play is, a tiny Wegmans, and more. One of my favorite parts was a section of the museum that had a rotating exhibit. When we were there, it was all about racing games, so Outrun, Mario Kart GP, and other arcade games were able to be played. They showed off some cool electronics of some of these games. One thing that I found interesting was that they didn't just cover arcade titles like Outrun, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, but a lot of what this Strong focuses on is electronic arcade games as well. One of the racing games they had was a game called Hill Climb by Bali. It featured a rotating drum, and the idea was you had to steer the dirt bike and stay on the trail to get the highest score you could. More on that in a bit. We then had a presentation given to us by the members of the Strong, including Andrew Borman, who's the Director of Digital Preservation, John Paul Dyson, Director of ICHEG, aka the International Center for the History of Electronic Games, Lindsay Carano, Curator of Electronic Games, and a few others. This presentation talked about all that the Strong does, not only for digital preservation of games, but physical preservation of games, expanding collections, and the refurbishment of arcade games, so people can experience them today. For example, that Hill Climb game I talked about earlier, that was playable on the floor at the Strong, and they talked about how when they received the game, it was in rough shape, so they used a mix of 3D printing, paint, and engineering to recreate aspects of the game so players could continue experiencing it, while also ensuring gameplay is identical to how it originally played. After this presentation, we were given a tour of some of the archives, which gave us looks at different arcade games, pinball machines, and toys in a climate-controlled area. As Andrew said on his tour, some of these things may look like regular arcade titles, but more than likely they're special in some way. For example, this Star Wars arcade cabinet was actually owned by one of the developers, so all of his high scores are retained there, and the game is not for public use for that very reason. Attendees got tours of their restoration process, their full archives of arcade games, toys, and full collections of materials like North American and Japanese copies of games from the NES, SNES, PCFX, Genesis, Saturn, and more. Now, there were a ton of incredible talks, including one from Phil Salvador from the Video Game History Foundation, Garrett Fredley, an engineer at PlayStation, Jonas Rosland of HitSave, and many more, covering topics such as what the video game preservation community should do next, merchandise, piracy, and of course, how YouTube contributes and hurts the legacy of video games. If you want to know more about video game history itself, I highly recommend looking into organizations like HitSave and the Video Game History Foundation, who just launched their online library. I myself am a contributor to video game history and preservation, and all that I do with this channel is to serve one goal: that games and the history of how they are made and how we play them matter, and that history should be told. So I just want to thank the Strong Museum and everyone that I met there, including Phil Salvador from the Video Game History Foundation, Jonas Rosland from HitSave, and many, many more, including Andrew, Lindsay, and John Paul Dyson. Thank you very much for holding the Save the Games presentation. Thank you for inviting everyone to the Strong. It was great hearing everybody's, and I'm sorry that I'm so late on releasing my recording of my presentation. Without further ado, here's my mostly full presentation with questions at the end. Unfortunately, my camera only records for 30 minutes, so the last question gets cut off a little bit early, but I hope you enjoy.
All right.
right, so it is officially 9:40, so I'm going to go ahead and begin. Hello all, thank you for joining me. I am Justin Schofield, and today we'll be, of course, talking about video game preservation and YouTube, which is all about how the YouTube community helps and sometimes hurts the gaming preservation landscape, and what exactly we can do about it. Before we begin, let's talk a little bit about the roadmap for today's presentation. First, we'll talk a little bit about video game documentaries in general, and then we'll kind of talk about how YouTube is used in the gaming preservation community and common issues that this community faces and some approaches we can take to better kind of the overall landscape. So first off, at the request of the staff here at The Strong, I'd like to let you all know that you may record this presentation or take pictures of me while I'm up here. In fact, I do have a camera in the back that is recording my own presentation. I'm a YouTuber after all, so I do need content. Thank you. So to start off, a little bit about me. Like I mentioned earlier, my name is Justin Schofield. I am a video producer, director, and Godzilla enthusiast. I am the founder and director of Video Game Docs, a documentary-style YouTube channel focused on making research-based documentary videos on consoles, games, and more. I do all of my own research, writing, and editing, but my lovely wife does help with the script editing to ensure that I don't sound too dumb or that I'm not rambling for long periods of time. So I've been actively working on Video Game Docs since 2021, but I have had a presence in the YouTube gaming community in some way since I was a teenager. Aside from Video Game Docs, I work as a video producer at Interaction Media in Morgantown, West Virginia, which kind of allows me to hone my video production skills while also being able to work on Video Game Docs on the side. So to start, according to the Video Game History Foundation, as many of you probably know, only about 2% of documentaries are on the topic of video games, with documentaries about music, film, and TV making up the other 98%. There are currently 28 documentaries about video games listed on Wikipedia, and if you compare that to the 134 documentaries that are just about films, there are 15 alone just about Star Wars, so that 28 number looks a little sad. While video game documentaries on Wikipedia, of course, include documentaries about specific communities like the Smash Brothers, or simply a road trip documentary on getting a specific game like Nintendo Quest, these documentaries are important in many ways, but choosing to focus just on official documentaries can discount what communities online have done. So this is where the YouTube community can and has come in many ways. YouTube has the uniqueness of being a community that is led and driven, being led and driven by the community, meaning that instead of creating a documentary to please shareholders, production companies, or distribution companies, or figuring out a way to fund a lot of these things, channels like NoClip, Gaming Historian, Summoning Salt, and more can create hyper-specific content solely focused on their own interests or their community's interests. Of the videos listed on NoClip and Gaming Historian's YouTube channels alone, there are exactly 344, at the time that I created this presentation at least. On just those two channels, that equates to 12 times more than the 28 video game documentaries that are currently listed on Wikipedia. This is of course excluding the hundreds, if not thousands, of other videos created by smaller channels all across YouTube. The biggest fact in all of this is, again, that these are all community driven, with members of NoClip or Gaming Historians communities choosing topics, providing feedback, or even correcting information within these videos. While these may not be official Wikipedia having documentaries, these are legitimate productions with time, love, care, and most importantly, diligent research and journalistic integrity. Beyond just documentary-style videos, we can learn what players thought of a game upon release through video reviews, or how different players engage with mechanics, puzzles, and stories through Let's Plays, live streams, and long plays. We can learn how players gradually broke gameplay to achieve faster times via speedruns, or what makes a Donkey Kong platformer so fun to play. Leaked or found footage of games in their early betas and alphas give us a look at what might have changed during the development, or a 2-hour walk-around of E3 in 1999 allows us to see what it would be like to be on the show floor while games like Metal Gear Solid 2 were being shown off for the first time. We can even find sources of what developers have to say about their games in interviews or podcasts, or see the intricacies of how they made certain games work on designers' personal YouTube channels. Point being, YouTube is much more than an alternate source of gaming documentary videos, but also an immense visual and auditory archive of how we play games. These forms of content not only bring significant entertainment value, but also help preserve different aspects of video games beyond simply archiving the ROMs or ISOs or code of these games. Along with YouTubers and people part of the community, YouTube itself is a huge resource for marketing materials from just about every company. YouTube is where video game trailers are released at this point, not to mention live streams of announcements like Nintendo Directs, Summer Games Fest, E3 presentations, and many more, all hosted on the site. The main point is that YouTube is the video platform for the internet. So there's a treasure trove of content on YouTube by creators like myself, but also by official channels with gaming companies wanting to market their games via YouTube. So that is where we kind of get into the weakness of YouTube and of gaming on YouTube specifically. The two biggest issues that I've come across when it comes to this community-driven approach is that there is no specific vetting of content, and there's absolutely no agreements on how we should be citing our information. So while official documentaries on certain subjects do not generally have a works cited, and one could argue against using these documentaries as primary sources, in terms of official research, a lot of documentaries rely on interviews, first-hand accounts, and a worthwhile documentary will have an expert or multiple experts in the field attempting to vet information that ends up in the documentary. Along with that, documentaries created by historians in whichever field generally include a resources page. While that may be difficult to find, it is something at least. The same can't really be said about YouTube content, and it's more of an issue with the internet in general. Since anyone is allowed to upload anything they'd like at any time, people can post wildly inaccurate information, rumors, and more at any point. With the fact that anyone can upload, post, comment, etc., there's no real reason as a viewer or reader that you should trust whatever someone posts on their channel as a fact. But this isn't the case, and instances do occur where a channel has stated a historical fact that may or may not be 100% accurate, but it goes through an internet telephone of sorts. The best way that creators and community members can keep everyone accountable is by agreeing on a standard of citation, which helps ensure correct information is the most important part. Now, before we get into that, I am going to take a bit of a break and talk about a little bit of an anecdote on how poor sourcing can lead to kind of a rabbit hole of where did this come from. I do want to put a disclaimer. This is not meant to throw anybody under the bus or call out any specific channel or whatever, but here it is. Back in February, I released a video on Super Mario RPG: Legend of the Seven Stars. While there are plenty of videos already on this subject, I was interested in covering the game and began researching it in November when the remake came out. During my research, I stumbled upon a story that many of you probably have heard before. Chihiro Fujioka, the director of Super Mario RPG, presented Shigeru Miyamoto with early in-development concepts. It was a combination of Mario with Final Fantasy, including more traditional swords, a knight, armor, etc. And when presented with this, Miyamoto just simply stated, "That's not right." And Miyamoto and Fujioka kind of went back and forth on what the game should look like at that point. Now, when I was originally looking for the story, this is kind of how it went. First, I came upon this Destructoid article about the whole story, and within this Destructoid article, they quoted a popular YouTube channel. After watching the video, I of course do hear the story that was quoted in the article, and I see a graphic on screen of Miyamoto even stating, "That's not right." So, trying to do some more digging because the YouTube channel didn't state anything, I find another article. This time it doesn't cite anybody, it just kind of regurgitates the information and doesn't even mention the previous YouTube channel. And then finally, I found another video that includes the story, but still no specific citation to be had. And after doing my own digging, I was able to find the story. It was from an Iwata Asks interview in 2012 regarding Paper Mario Sticker Star. And again, I'm not trying to exact blame or anything like that. It's more so of a personal experience of how a story that is important to the history of a specific game can be lost to time, since the most well-known and easiest to find retelling of the story is from a YouTube video that doesn't state where they themselves got it from initially. So why is this an issue? Obviously, I think we all know why this is an issue, and it comes down to citations, citations, and more citations, of course. So citing information on YouTube is truly the Wild West. You'll commonly find creators saying according to or in an interview from, but never directly citing the source that they may be getting that from. In fact, there are creators that simply don't state where they get their information, or they may package it at the end of the video with a thank you statement, etc., let alone an agreed upon standard for citing this information. So not fully attributing information that has been pulled from multiple sources is first off plagiarism, but it's also a continuing issue with the internet as a whole. YouTube content creators are hurting a digital age where information is consistently being lost to time, or it is just fully misattributed. I myself have found multiple occasions while researching where an article on a Wikipedia page or some other article is trying to cite something or give you a citation and it just doesn't exist anymore, or maybe they will simply state Next Gen Magazine and won't give you a page number, or the page numbers are incorrect, and that effectively kills streamlined research, and creators within the YouTube space are committing the same mistake. What's most hurtful are instances of what I mentioned earlier, where a fact from a video gets repeated by different news outlets, it gets repeated on social media platforms, and eventually that information might be attributed to whoever spoke it first. This becomes increasingly important as smaller channels and even larger channels should establish some form of credibility. Take me, for example. I don't have any formal education in history, research, etc., so I should be questioned in any of the information that I may bring up in my video, especially if I'm not citing anything. So another fun anecdote, I had a fellow in my comments not too long ago on a video, I believe it was my Luigi's Mansion video, before I had implemented my own sort of citation standards, and they'd simply asked, where did you get all of this information? I haven't heard most of it. And they had every right to question me on that because I didn't state where I got it. Luckily, it was just from the Luigi's Mansion official strategy guide, so that was easy enough. I had a copy on my own and I knew where to find it, so I was able to point them to the right direction to find that information. But it's one of those things that it happens all the time. It happens on my channel, so it's something that we should look into and figure out. So creators in not only the gaming community, but YouTube as a large have started to shed a light on issues like this. But again, it started from the community and will continue to come from the community itself. I believe that above all, ensuring this information is correct and that the information is open to the public it should be on the forefront of every creator's mind. If you didn't get your information from an interview you yourself conducted that is said or shown word for word in your video, essay, or documentary, it should be cited so that any future researcher, fan, or critic can easily find and verify that what you're stating is correct. It's well known that documentaries, academic articles, research studies, etc. are subject to peer reviews. They include works cited, references, what have you, so that while creating, the information is known to be factual, known to be correct. Most importantly, after publishing, the ability to trace back what was used and where within these subject matters helps not only establish a form of credibility, but also leaves a paper trail for further research in the respected fields. As a YouTube creator, establishing credibility should be incredibly important, but as we talked about earlier, the internet is truly the Wild West in terms of who and what can be posted, so it's a creator's duty to include a way for peers, community members, and everyone in between to fact check and ensure that we keep our history of play intact. Thankfully, due to the hard work of the community and other creators in the space, not only asking for sources, but really requiring citations for videos is becoming more common. So how exactly do we do that? How do we as online creators, or we as the community, ensure that they are providing correct information for their viewers? One of the biggest hurdles for citations on YouTube and in the YouTube gaming community specifically is agreeing on how we should be citing. So first, let's take a look at some popular examples of citations on YouTube, and not just within the specific gaming community. So first, we have H Bomber Guy thank you, who is the inspiration for the title of this presentation. If you didn't know, H Bomber Guy provides a Google Doc with Roblox_oof.mp3 references for his popular video Roblox_oof.mp3 that investigates Tommy Tallarico and the origins of the Roblox oof sound effect. This document not only provides footage used in the background of the video, but also where he got some interviews, some more information on things like that. But the thing is this document really only provides video sources or video citations. So if there was a magazine or an article that he quoted within the video, it might not be there or probably isn't there. So let's take a look at another example that I think can help with this. The popular sports channel Secret Base, in their video series, The History of the Minnesota Vikings, provides screenshots or scans of newspaper articles, footage, and more on the screen as you watch the video. And while the information is shown, it gives an on-screen citation, going so far as to give you the title, the writers, the date it was released, etc. Really, it's a true citation, not simply a reference, but here's a quote that I'm saying, and here's the exact place I got it from, like you would see in an academic paper, for example. They even give a little bug in the bottom right of the screen stating where they get the footage from, if it's a footage of a football game, for example. So you might not be able to see it, but down in the bottom right, it says like NFL Films Productions. So what do these two channels tell us? Should we, show references on screen, or should we put references in a separate document entirely? Don't get me wrong, there are channels in the gaming community, like Gaming Historian or a friend of mine, Rewind Arcade, that do list sources in the description or have the citations listed on a personal website. And providing these in any meaningful way is what is important. But we should be attempting to streamline this process for everyone, which is why I've been attempting a two-way approach to give the information within these videos, which is something that I hope creators can start doing moving forward. So this is kind of my approach. In my latest video, the PlayStation 2 All About Emotion, while writing my script, I kept a separate document with every single article, video, magazine, etc. that I used while writing. Whether I actually quoted the article in question or simply used it to read the information off of, I still kept it in this document. As I wrote the script, I would use a form of in-text citations for every piece of information that I got, whether that was a direct quote or, again, just information or context. While editing, I make use of motion graphics, and I attempt to provide every single piece of information that I use to write the script. Obviously, the exact specifications as told to Japanese journalists is not common knowledge. So if I'm going to talk about the Japanese press release, it's best and easiest to show the Japanese press release that I'm talking about, while highlighting any information that comes from said references. While the information is on screen, I like to provide a title and a link to the reference. So something that I refer to as, again, an on-screen citation. I do believe that this may be a tad misguided because a link isn't entirely helpful if you can't click it or copy and paste it. And that is a lot for someone to type in and ask them to type in while watching a video. So before I release the video, though, I do create another Google document that contains all of the references and citations that I use, and preferably links to said references so that others may click on them and view them themselves if they like to do further reading. Since I like to do historical deep dives, generally delving into reception and initial statements provided by developers, CEOs, retro magazines are a big part of what I use. So I attempt to find an Internet Archive version of it or a scan so that I can provide people with the link so that they can view it themselves. I also provide timestamps of when these references are used in the video so that if they pause it and go try to find the information in the Google Doc, they don't have to kind of cross-reference between the video and what's on the Google Doc. And of course, since video creation is a profoundly visual medium, I also do believe it's necessary to provide any video context, any background footage that is being used, even if it's, again, simple background footage that had to be created by someone somewhere and can be and will be helpful to viewers and historians in the future. This becomes increasingly important as video creators spend more time, money, and dedication to crafting high-quality, accurate content. So I do believe this kind of two-way system, a system that quotes and shows the information clearly on screen as to establish credibility and provide full context, whether that be a magazine, video, interview, or web article on a separate document. This allows for further reading and is a big step forward, but not necessarily a perfect system, mind you, and I do think it's a good start. So again, I just kind of admitted that my system is not perfect, so here's kind of some future steps that I have implemented and will be implementing moving forward, and that I kind of call on the community to think about as we kind of go through this time. So first, it starts with the script. Now, as I continue to write, I do create a general works cited, and I do in-text citations in an MLA format. Why MLA, you may be asking? Well, to me, video games are a bit more in line with the humanities, so I chose that citation style to fit it. but if I'm also being honest with you all and myself, it's because I think it's easier to understand to me personally. So that's just kind of why I chose that. Then of course within the video I'll do an on-screen citation similar to secret basis format. This is the same screenshot from earlier, just pretend that the link is not there because I haven't created a video with this format yet. So imagine it just says story via CNN and then provides the name, date, etc. So again, similar to secret basis format, this time with an MLA type of on-screen citation, including title, author, page number, and any other relevant information that I might want to include, like like a website, for example, but not the full link, since again, viewers aren't able to click it or copy and paste it. Finally, for the public-facing works cited, I have done an MLA citation format, but instead of going alphabetically, I've done the timestamp method instead, and including a link to whatever it is for ease of use primarily. The reason for this timestamp method is I believe it's more important for viewers to be able to find exactly what they'd like to find at any point in the video, rather than, again, having to cross-examine what's on the Google Doc and then what is in the video itself. I do believe having a citation format is incredibly important, and along with the credibility establishment for my own sake, I then can include the year of publishing, the publisher itself, and other aspects for others to understand the credibility of the source itself. So in conclusion, YouTube is an incredible space, not only for people to create entertaining content, but a place that currently and will continue to host an important library of video game history in many different forms. But one of the biggest issues on the site is how do we make YouTube a more legitimate space in the basic sense? And I think by agreeing on a citation standard that creators can follow, we can better preserve our history of play and help prevent the accidental spread of misinformation. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you so much to the Strong Museum and everyone involved for putting this event together and even reading the abstract in the first place. If you have any questions, I would love to take a few minutes and do a bit of a Q&A. Yes.
You put together some really quality videos. And because YouTube is, like you say, the wild, wild west, do you find it difficult to get creators and directors of the material that you're documenting to grant interviews because of that?
At some points, yes. I do believe, again, because YouTube is kind of viewed as not fully legitimate in certain ways. And of course, I do think that there are creators within the space that have made it a more legitimate platform. So at this point, the stigma of like, oh, they're just a YouTuber, they're a YouTube creator, so I'm going to shy away from that, has kind of shifted. But I have seen that before where it's a little bit wary at first, but also generally a lot of the developers of these games are just happy to talk about their games. So even if it's just for fun, a good many amount of them will still at least talk to you via email, maybe not sit down for a full video interview though.
Would you say that the James Somerton situation has really helped put forward, first and foremost, we really do need citations? No, really.
Yeah, I think that the James Somerton situation and again H-Bomber Guy's video, I think that was kind of the catalyst for a lot of this.
Explain what that is.
Yeah. So basically, a few months back, a large creator on the YouTube space named H-Bomber Guy, like I mentioned kind of briefly, he created a video specifically talking about citations and YouTube and how they kind of intersect and how they don't really match, because a lot of creators, in his examples, he pulled a few specific creators, one by the name of James Somerton, who is found to be either directly quoting or just taking pages out of books and pages out of already done studies and kind of plagiarizing, regurgitating this information in a video style format. And so to answer your question, I do think that that was kind of the catalyst for this, because it kind of opened the eyes of many to be like, wait a minute, this is someone else's work. We do need to be doing this work. And that was the catalyst for me even wanting to do this presentation, because I think it's even not even more important, but it is incredibly important in the gaming community to ensure that we are doing this. And again, by agreeing on a citation format, I think that will help.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's conversations, to get meta for a second, are there conversations happening in your YouTube community about preserving your own content? content? Like, do you have a plan for your own? Because there was a study we think a lot about preserving YouTube documentaries specifically in our institution. I was just rereading a study from about 10 years ago comparing YouTube as an archive to us as an archive, and literally 90% of the links were dead or privatized or just they kind of disappeared. So just wondering if those conversations are happening too.
Yeah, I think, and there have been, there was a talk yesterday talking about how we can help archive some of these YouTube channels, and I think that it is incredibly important not only for developers of games that might lose access to their content, but again, people like me who make these videos. I know that I personally, and people within the community, like, I ensure that I have a backup to everything. So I have 2 separate hard drives that have a copy of each of my videos, because if something were to happen to my YouTube channel, I still have the original file that I can re-upload anywhere else. And then also kind of making sure that there are redundancies in a lot of those things. And I have seen that I have seen that within my own community where people are like, hey, you're not gonna delete your channel if you stop YouTube, like, correct? And I'm like, I promise if I stop doing YouTube, I won't completely delete everything, because again, that's losing information, that's losing preservation that's already been done.
So, because YouTube now looks a lot different than YouTube when it first came out in terms of how you find videos, specifically with regards to like these algorithms that suggest videos to you, do you view those sorts of developments as a positive thing in terms of people being able to more readily access what they're looking for, or more of a negative thing in terms of certain things are not being sort of brought to the surface of people trying to do research?
That's a great question. I think that in my personal experience, it has been more of a negative thing because it kind of, what I've noticed in the change with some of YouTube's algorithms is it will try to bring up what they think is most relevant to what you're searching for, and then after a couple videos, they will start showing other things that might not be incredibly relevant to your search. So a lot, like, I think that it has been more of a negative experience, but I also do think that at the same time, YouTube has done a better job at recognizing what someone may want and then putting that on your homepage rather than you specifically having to search for it. So it's kind of like a weird balance that I don't think YouTube has fully hit yet, but more net negative, I would say. And something that could be helpful within this whole conversation of like archiving YouTube videos and ensuring that we have citations is maybe the idea is we have a different site that has specific research videos. You know, we archive specific E3 walkarounds, trailers, etc., documentaries, all of these things onto a site that's not necessarily hosted by YouTube, but we kind of pull from YouTube for those things.